Hello and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Katie Romagnolo, and we are talking about the magic of cycles, specifically when you get stuck in a negative cycle and how to break free of what's actually going on. So, we teach here the power of working with moon cycles, and it's for a very specific reason because we tend to find as entrepreneurs there's these highs and lows to what we go through in growing our business. Your business is a mirror to your subconscious. What you're experiencing on the outside is definitely a reflection of something that is going on the inside. And the reason why natural cycles and following where these phases are going really tends to work and make huge impact in our lives and businesses is because it allows for a natural process to tap into that subconscious information, gain awareness with it, and know what to actually do to make change. So, negative cycles, these are really important in our lives. And it may not feel good when we're in a negative cycle, but it's really important to pay attention to. Because the thing that will happen if we don't is that cycle will probably naturally at some point break, loose, not free, but loose into another era of change. Nothing ever stays the same. We might have a little bit of movement, but what will happen if we don't connect with what we're meant to know about that cycle, why it's happening, is it will occur again. So, this is why it's a cycle. This is why it might be a pattern. This is why it's a habit. So, if there's something that you're noticing in your life, whether you're currently going through this or you're noticing this connection in the past where there has been something that has occurred more than once in your life, this might be some type of negative relationship, something you don't want to experience ever again. Maybe it's been a certain type of partner or friend or family dynamic. If that's occurred for you more than once, different people, different scenarios, but for whatever reason, the same feeling or circumstances seems to occur within your life, this episode is for you. If you ever experience this in business where you are trying really hard, you're doing all the things and nothing is happening, or maybe very little is happening, and you've tried all of the things when it comes to pulling yourself into alignment, maybe manifestation practices, maybe you've hired a coach, but for whatever reason, something's got to give and you just don't know what it is. There's a pattern that is occurring more than once that you've tried to break free from. This episode is for you. Now, I want to share a little bit about why I'm here. So, for those of you who are tuning in live, thank you so much for being here. Interact with me in the comments. I so appreciate your time and energy in being here. If you're watching us on the replay, let me know in the comments. And if you were new here, where who the heck is this girl and what is going on with the moon phases? Well, I want to share with you a little bit of a story of why breaking cycles is so important to me and why it's part of the work that I help entrepreneurs move through when they are building a business they love that makes money too. So, a certain number of years ago, I was in a very negative pattern that I was trying to hustle my way out of. Before I was operating as a coach, before I ever knew that I'd be called into the work that I do today, I was a very busy real estate agent and I was trying to get through all of my internal feelings of being really nervous talking to people. Now, sincerely, I could have never back then done what I'm doing today with you here, been on a live video, doing a live stream, something that's unscripted, it would have never been something I would have even tried because I had so much social anxiety that the idea of even talking to clients one on one threw me into a complete tizzy. And this would start in a mental state. It would move into my body. It would cause panic attacks. I remember going outside in the middle of the night and trying to figure out what is happening in my life and just pouring my heart out to the moon. Now, at the time, I didn't realize the power in what I was doing, releasing my emotions and allowing for all of the things that I felt ashamed of, embarrassed of, what I thought was not good about myself. I just would let them pour out in the middle of the forest on my property in the middle of nowhere. What I didn't realize is I actually felt intuitively guided to do these particular releases of how I felt, letting my emotions out, crying and releasing that memory that's stored inside our cellular tissue within the body. I was drawn to do this at very specific times, unknowingly. There's this natural instinct that we all have that we want to do certain things at certain times. It's because there's an energetic flow that's actually supporting our actions in doing or in being. And that particular energy was a full moon. I was drawn out there because it was beautiful, because I had a lot of light to go and sit on the shoreline of my property, and it was a soothing experience for me. In a logical sense, yes, it was. It was a beautiful setting. It was allowing for me to sit there quietly on my own, and it felt really peaceful and calming. But the reason behind why it felt peaceful and calming was because there was an energy, an air about where we were in that cycle that was really conducive to being. And being meaning forget who you think you need to be, forget what you were told you needed to do. If it's not working for you, we need to get back into the being state of who you naturally are. And a lot of the times that requires us to take off the mask. And that can be the hardest part to this human experience. What is it we think people perceive us as? What is it we think a successful business owner looks like, acts like, talks like, thinks like? How do you know you're right? Because we get bombarded with messages continually. And I was getting bombarded internally with my own subconscious messages that said, Katie, you're not really good at anything. You'll never amount to anything. Everything that you do, you have to try so hard for, and it's always a struggle. And I was continually compounding my thoughts and creating these deep rooted limiting beliefs to say, you're weak. You'll never be strong. You'll never be able to break through these things that you want. And it was too much to bear. So that particular pattern that was happening and cycle in my life, it was rooting deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where nothing I was doing was working. I was creating logical plans to try and move myself forward in my life and business to create the results that I wanted. Now, it was causing me to have some results in the sense of I was generating an income. I was doing things that people thought were fantastic in the sense of on the outside surface level. I had a beautiful home. I have a great husband. I had a career that was selling in real estate and I was very busy. On the inside, though, because I was pushing to do things instead of working on my state of being and why I was naturally afraid or fearful of doing those things, it caused so much internal havoc that I was breaking down. And every time I tried to take another step forward on the plan without addressing at the core what it was that I actually wanted and needed in my life, it was getting worse and worse. My feelings were actually getting worse and worse. So if you've ever tried to work your way out of a negative cycle where you've been told just do XYZ and things will change and they didn't, it's because there's a layer deeper. And sometimes the thing that we need to do most is completely outside of our awareness. Because we get really, really good when we're in negative cycles in coming up with excuses. And those excuses are meant to fight for the current state that we're in. And that may feel confusing to hear. Why would anybody ever want to fight for the current state of negative patterns or cycles that they're in? It's because we get into comfort zones. And it may not feel comfortable in your body to experience having struggle. Maybe it's financial strain, maybe it's relationship strain, but there's a connection. There's a tether to something that has occurred either in the past more than once or maybe on a subconscious level that has said, there's something in that that's comfortable for me. Struggle for me was the comfort. I had lived a life of struggle in so many ways where I always had things work out. And I had this thing that I would say to myself, things are always working out for me. But what I realized was the point in time in which something would break through to the other side and actually work out for me and even out was right at the point of no return. So I would dig myself into this negative state, this negative pattern to the point where there was nowhere else to turn. And I either had to make a change, to do something different, to take a different course of action that actually caused me to address the way that I felt about myself, or do something that I had been encouraged to do that I was avoiding, or else something really bad would happen. And I noticed this many times occurring in my life. When I was going to school, originally I had moved from Alberta to Toronto as a teenager all by myself with this big dream and really no plan. And I was a very free spirit at that time where I thought I could do anything, but I was still carrying around a lot of baggage from my childhood that had instilled the thoughts of saying that, no, no, you will never do anything with your life. You come from a poor neighborhood. You don't have any support within your mental state in order to actually achieve the things that you want. I had that deep rooted inside that I, conveniently tried to forget. So when I showed up in a new province and I tried to make a life of my own and do all these amazing things that I thought I was capable of mentally in a conscious way, all of a sudden things would start to break down. It's because for me, I needed to get to a very negative state in order to find a miracle solution out. I'm really good at finding a miracle solution out. And it was actually my pat on the back internally to say, Katie, you're really good at getting yourself out of these really bad situations. And I would get praise externally from friends and family when they would notice, wow, like you would have had to move back home because you ran out of money, and this happened. This happened my 2nd year in college because I had no plan. I didn't know how I was gonna make money. I was just pie in the sky doing, really nothing that I needed to really do, focusing on my studies. So when I ran out of money and had no plan to get there, that was my breaking point. That was the point of no return. If I didn't figure out how to come up with a way to stay in that province, then not only was I going to have to drop out of school, which took a lot for a kid that came from a low income, rough neighborhood who barely qualified for student loans to get there, not only would I have to defeat all of that time and energy that it took me to get there, but I had met my future husband at that time. I had met the man that was going to make a huge difference in my life, a soulmate connection. I had met him and I wasn't willing to let that go. So I had to figure out how was I going to stay in that province? How was I going to finish my studies? And miracles started to happen at that point in my life, right at the right moment in which they needed to. So my personal lesson, and this has happened several times since, this has been an awareness that has occurred. That was 18 years ago. But now, as I've noticed, it has occurred several times since. I've noticed that I'm really good at creating miracles in my life when I have no other options. So the pattern that I would want to break is to be able to get to that state of creating miracles in my life and coming up with resources and options before the whole world is about to fall out from underneath me. So maybe you're noticing that there's simple things that have gone in your life. Maybe it's not big catastrophic things like having to, make a whole life change and move provinces and being out of money and all of that that occurred for me at certain points in my life. But maybe there's a connection for you because that felt comfortable for me to find the struggle in order to use it as a catalyst to make change in my life. Our subconscious is always moving through these pieces that are trying to get us to connect with what is going to make us feel like we can get something done. So if you've got this resounding sort of default energy of, I do this when this happens, and your subconscious knows that, you're kind of going to always be moving towards creating that pattern again at another state in your life. So, in order to break through that, in order to not have to have for myself the rock bottom happen, in order to shift and create change towards the thing that I actually really wanted, I had to do the one thing that I wanted to do the least, but I needed to do the most. And it's come in layers. So at first it was I needed to actually tell somebody that I was struggling with anxiety. That had been something that I had never shared with anybody before and had struggled with it my entire life. I had put on a mask that said that I could take care of others. I was the one who was able to work miracles when we got into really hairy situations at home or in, my early childhood. I was the one that was responsible for getting people out of things a lot of the time. I put myself in that role. My husband now calls me the public defender because I will all of a sudden pull out all the stops for someone that I really feel had an injustice done. But why do I need to get to the state of injustice in order to make that shift and change? So, in order to do that, the thing that I needed to do the most first was tell somebody what I was going through, that I was struggling with anxiety. That opened up a whole lot of layers that allowed me to really move into the work that I do today. Didn't realize that I would become a coach through everything that I learned and trained in to help myself move through that cycle. But we have these connections that are trying to help us move forward. So, in the energy that we're sitting in today, we are in what I call the third quarter moon phase. And this is all about what's working and what's not working. We are rounding out the end of a cycle of our lunar phase here. And it's all about deciding, really being in tune with what is good for you and understanding what is not, so that you can start to take action towards what it is that you need to do to break those negative cycles in your life. Because we are always provided with information. This is the week that you're going to notice that you're getting internal feedback. So the way that you feel about a situation that's either going really well or a situation that maybe is going really poorly, you're going to get internal feedback this week. And it's meant for you to really digest and understand and ponder and think about for yourself so that you can decide, is there something that's a negative pattern here that is trying to be broken? Is there something that I know that I need to do that I'm not even sharing with anybody that I feel like I need to do because it causes me to feel a certain way if I'm going to do that thing? So for me, talking to others was a really big deal. It felt very scary. And the reason was because I had a pattern to it in the past where I had spoken up in times where I was either defending somebody in my life, or I was trying to speak up when there was abuse that was going on at home and being silenced. And it being very dangerous to voice my opinion at certain times in my life. I had packed up that feeling, stored it in all of my subconscious layers, and started unpacking it in areas where it had no place being. So, in talking to a client, very safe scenario. Now, a lot of things can happen when you're in sales and you're speaking to clients, and you can get no's and you can get objections and you can get all the things that maybe don't, feel fantastic when you have objections that are coming up and you're not getting a yes to a sale, but it's not dangerous. My internal guidance system said, when you speak up and somebody has something to say that is opposing, even if it's in a loving and generous way, even if it's kind and polite, it didn't matter to me. If there was any kind of objection, any kind of resistance to what I was saying, if somebody wasn't willing to hear it, if it wasn't really easy for me to say with a yes, then all of a sudden it would trigger that part of me that was connected to that old pattern that said, "You are in danger, Katie." And it would cause a panic attack. It made no logical sense, but it made perfect sense at the same time. So working on those cues has been my mission, and it's gotten me to a state of being in some pretty incredible places by allowing myself to break that pattern. Number 1 is being here with you, being able to have this conversation, being able to do this live and unscripted, being able to answer your questions. I love them so very much, and thank you so much to Sue, who messaged me privately this week to say, "I'm going through this tough time. How do I break this negative cycle in my life?" And we talked about a lot of these things one on one. It's important because the thing that you want is really seeking you to break those patterns that are causing you to not have what you want. And if it feels uncomfortable to do the thing that you know you need to do, but you really don't want to do it, then there's information there. There's a reason why. And maybe there's some support and resources that you can get in order to take those steps that you need to make those connections and do what you need to. But you don't need to do it alone. So, finding your core community that is really like minded and allowing for you to grow as an individual is what's going to allow you to really grow in your business and to have what it is that you want. You've probably heard it before that in order to have what you want, you need to do what you're not doing now. Because if you were already doing it, you would likely have the thing that you want that is not happening. So, the more important thing to discern from that is not what are you not doing, but why. Why are you not doing it? And get really honest with yourself. This is the time period in which you're supported in doing that. Get really honest with yourself about why you're not doing something. Let go of the mask and the layers of embarrassment or shame or worry or fear or anger or whatever it is that comes up, and allow yourself to rise to the surface to make the connections. This is your awareness phase, your feedback phase. Talk it out with somebody that you know and trust. If you got emotions that happen around what you're talking about this week, it's okay. They're there for a reason. We're doing a little bit of a detox that's happening. There's some big energetic cycles that are closing out, and things are happening for you for a reason. So let me know in the comments if you are working through something that, wow, you're realizing the connections to, and this was really helpful today. And if you want more information on how to really move through these natural cycles, Moonlogic Magic School is where we've got an incredible community of all heart led entrepreneurs, a whole bunch of different industries. This stuff really works regardless of what type of client work, customer work, product work that you do. And if you're really looking to elevate your career in speaking, in storytelling, in writing, this stuff is a beautiful way to form your narrative around having confidence and clarity in what you do. I have used these methods to get on some pretty big stages, including the world tour for Think and Grow Rich. As a girl who had anxiety, who couldn't talk to people, it was just an incredible experience to break through that pattern and do that. I've also been able to pitch on the national TV show Dragon's Den. And it's just been this incredible whirlwind of allowing every time that negative pattern, that situation, something that comes up on repeat occurs, to notice it and to realize, why is it that I've been holding myself back? Why is it that that feeling is occurring? There's always a feeling that is connected to it. Get to the root of the feeling, get to the awareness of what it's trying to tell you, and magic will happen in your life. Don't wait until rock bottom to allow for miracles to happen. My lesson of this lifetime, in which am fully integrating and feel so appreciative of at this point in my life, but it's not easy when you're going through the rock bottom to think that, wow, my goodness, I'm going to have this incredible lesson on the other side that was so important. So keep going wherever you are. Check us out more in the description here. And remember to go ahead and share this video if it will resonate with somebody that you know that maybe needs to hear this message today. And go ahead and hit subscribe now. I am live here every Tuesday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and answering your listener questions. I'll see you next time.